This is Ian Cameron for Sportsbook Review with your NHL early lines report for the card taking place on Saturday, November the 5th. As always on Saturday in the NHL, it's a big slate. We're going to break down several of the games. We're going to start by looking at the Minnesota-Colorado game. Note the start time, 3 p.m. Eastern, the only afternoon game taking place on Saturday. And we've got the Minnesota Wild off to a pretty good start this season, 6-3-1. They'll be looking to bounce back, though, from a home loss to the Buffalo Sabres, 2-1 in their last game, which snapped a 3-game winning streak for the Wild. Now they're going on the road. They're playing Colorado, Pittsburgh, and Philadelphia, all on the road in their next 3 games. So first game of a road trip usually means you get that extra focus from the team that's starting that road trip. So I expect Minnesota to be ready to go for this game. On the flip side, Colorado, I'm a little bit baffled, by their 4-0 shutout loss in Chicago. They actually outshot the Blackhawks 38-21. They came out really strong in that game, had a great first period, had plenty of chances, couldn't bury any of them. Next thing you know, Chicago scores 2 quick ones and they're down 2-0, despite the fact the Avalanche played a very good first period. Disappointing because all the comments from the Colorado dressing room following their 5-1 home loss to Nashville was it was an embarrassing effort. We didn't play very well. We could play a lot better. You're not going to see us with that kind of effort again. It looked like Colorado was going to bring a big time effort against Chicago. They did in theory. They did outshoot Chicago 38-21. Corey Crawford was fantastic in net, and the Blackhawks were able to hold the Avalanche at bay, but still not the result they hoped for. I just got to worry about, they put so much into wanting to play a good game, bounce back from that Nashville game, and then you get shut out. And that's definitely a concern here for Colorado as they go back home now to face this Minnesota team. And it's not like Colorado's played great hockey at home this year. In fact, you look at what they've done. They've lost each of their last 2 home games against Winnipeg and Nashville. So not exactly playing great on home ice. I think the spot's good here for Minnesota, and I still think they're the better of these 2 hockey teams. So at an even money price, I would lean to the Wild. Next game we'll look at, how about Rangers and Boston? Very good rivalry here. And a situation where you've got one team in the Rangers, that is trending, over the total in a lot of their games, scoring goals in bunches, facing a Boston team that has recently been trending under the total and not giving up a lot of goals in bunches. And the reason why for Boston is simple. Tuukka Rask is back in net. He makes a world of difference for this team. There's no denying that. I mean, they lose to the Wild and the Rangers by a score of 10-2 combined last week without Tuukka Rask. Then 3 straight wins for the Bruins since he came back. They beat Detroit 1-0, Florida 2-1, and a 4-3 shootout win. And that shootout took forever. If you watch that Bruins Lightning shootout on Thursday, man alive, did that ever take forever. It didn't look like anyone was going to score. Finally, Bruins prevail 4-3 in the shootout there in that game to keep their winning streak going. I'm not in any rush to step in front of either of these teams right now. Rangers have won 3 in a row. They have been a little bit more vulnerable on the road this season, the Rangers. Their road record just 1-2. This is only their 4th road game. They've had a home-heavy, MSG-heavy schedule so far this season. Bruins 1-2 at home, and that was a problem for Boston last year, was their home record. So something's got to give in this game. But again, a game I don't have much of an opinion on, but a fascinating game to watch. I do think if you want to bet this game, you're looking at a correlated side and total. I think Rangers probably correlates more with over in this game because I've been impressed with the weapons offensively for this Rangers team. Rick Nash, Matt Zuccarello, Jimmy Vesey's been just outstanding for this team. JT Miller's producing offense for this. They are getting contributions up and down their lineup from this Rangers team. Very tough to stop. So it's a very interesting game, but I think Rangers correlates more with over. Bruins correlates with the under, side and total wise in that hockey game. Let's see, what's the next game we'll talk about? How about Edmonton and the New York Islanders? I'll tell you what, the Oilers deserved a better fate, I thought, in their last game against the New York Rangers. They lose 5-3. They played just as good, if not better, than the Rangers in that game, but every single critical little mistake that the Oilers made in their own zone against the Rangers pretty much ended up in the back of their net, and that was the difference in the game. Just a little lapse in coverage here and there, even though I thought defensively they played a solid enough game, and it wasn't enough because, like I said, the Rangers are scoring goals in bunches. You make defensive miscues against them right now, you're probably going to pay for it, and Edmonton did. They've now lost 3 straight games. You're starting to get a little worried now, but this team could have beat Toronto, should have beat Toronto, outshot the Leafs. right in the game with the Rangers. That was a tie game in the third period. Could have won that game. I think this is still, to me, a team that's showing big-time improvement. Cam Talbot's still been solid in net. The defense, even with some little lapses here and there against the Rangers, is still a lot better than it was at any point last season when it was a disaster for this team. Now they're facing a New York Islanders team that's very inconsistent. They're 4-7. They've lost 2 straight games, 4 of their last 5. The only win against Toronto, and that was Toronto playing less than 24 hours after they played in Montreal the night before. So the only win in the last 5 games for the Islanders was in a miserable spot over the Leafs on a back-to-back, playing on a back-to-back situation on the road. So I don't want to lay this price with the Islanders. I think Edmonton's deserved a better fate in each of their last 2 games. I would lean to the Oilers getting an underdog plus price in this game. Chicago-Dallas, great Central Division matchup here. Stars getting a much-needed win. Back home against St. Louis in their last game. Chicago was able to beat Colorado. A tough game to call, really. Chicago is finally, their penalty killing is improving finally. They've done a much better job with their penalty kill after it was such a big problem for them earlier in the season. Their penalty killing done a much better job. In fact, Chicago's now gone 3 straight games where they haven't allowed a power play goal. They've killed off their last 9 penalties. So good news for this Chicago penalty kill, which was just awful early in the season. It's going to need to be good here against Dallas, who we know, especially on the power play, capable of scoring goals. Look at last year's meetings between these teams. Dallas did pretty well against Chicago last year. When you look at the head-to-head meetings, won 4 of the 5 matchups against the Chicago Blackhawks last year. And now with a win under their belt to snap a little skid, they are slowly, and I mean slowly, getting healthier, but maybe a little, adrenaline, momentum boost for them. So maybe Dallas pulls out a win there, slight lean to the Stars. Calgary, LA, you know what? At some point, I think Glenn Gulletson is closing in on that point right now. He's probably closing in on saying, you know what, I may have to start riding Chad Johnson a little bit here in net, because Brian Elliott, I know they paid him all that money. They thought he was going to be their answer as their starting goaltender after having so many problems with Jonas Hiller and Kari Ramo and all these stiffs in net for them the last few years. But Brian Elliott just hasn't gotten his game together, not at all so far. He's had some decent outings, decent starts here and there, but really he hasn't been consistent. His .889 save percentage, not great, 3.12 goals against. Sure enough, Calgary gives Chad Johnson the start in their last game after losing 2 in a row against Washington and Chicago, and they get a big-time win, 3-2 in San Jose against the defending Western Conference champion Sharks. Chad Johnson was in net for that game, and I just wonder, because they won that game, does he go back to Chad Johnson here in this game for the Calgary Flames? I'll tell you what about the LA Kings. They had lost 3 straight games prior to their last one. They eke out a overtime victory, 3-2 against the Pittsburgh Penguins. I'm still not sold on Peter Budaj. He was terrible in the Anaheim game. He was a little bit better against Pittsburgh, but still not a goalie I trust. And like I've said before on these NHL videos, when you're asking me to lay more than -150 with this LA team, I'm just flat out not interested in doing it right now. This team's still got not defensive issues, but goaltending issues. They've still got a couple of key guys out, more than a couple of key guys out. Marian Gaborik hasn't played yet. They lose a key defenseman, and Braden McNabb is expected to be out for a week. Tom Gilbert is suspended for 3 games due to a hit he made on Ducks forward Nick Ritchie earlier this week, and that's another loss on the blue line. So some cluster injuries on the blue line, some goaltending concerns. We're going to get back to this game for play of the day because I think Calgary might have a shot in this game. Pittsburgh taking on San Jose. Big-time Stanley Cup final rematch. It's actually already the second time these teams have played this season. San Jose, I thought they were going to be itching to get some revenge against Pittsburgh when they played earlier this season in Pittsburgh, but San Jose couldn't hold a lead against the Penguins, and the Penguins come back to win that hockey game 3-2. It's at the point now where you wonder if Pittsburgh is inside San Jose's head a little bit. That's the concern. But San Jose is off back-to-back losses to Arizona and Calgary. You would think they're chomping at the bit. They're a little bit desperate for a win here. That being said, like I say, the matchup has dictated. Pittsburgh's had this team's number, and the only way I could bet it, even though San Jose, the spot is right for them off 2 straight losses, Only way I could bet it, especially with the plus price that's being offered on the Pittsburgh side, I could only look to the Penguins in that game. Maybe also a game that creeps over the total. We've seen this total at 5. Might be a little bit low. Pittsburgh scoring goals right now. You look what they've done. They've scored 3 goals or more now. In 4 of their last 5 games, they've scored 3 or more. So we may see some goals scored between the Penguins and Sharks on Saturday. All right, let's wrap it up. Play of the daytime, Calgary, LA. Let's go back to that game. I don't know who's going to start, but if my instinct and my gut is correct, it's telling me Glenn Gulletson is going to ride Chad Johnson one more game after he was fantastic, I thought, in Calgary's win against San Jose on Thursday night. And I think they can win this game, and I think Calgary is due for a winning streak. This is a team that's underachieved, underperformed through the first month of the season. This is a team I pegged for improvement before the season started. Hasn't exactly come together for them yet, sitting at just 5-7 on the season. But LA's not much better. They're only 5-6, and I think Calgary may just have a goalie edge, especially if Johnson's in net. And I think off that big win against San Jose, a little confidence coming Calgary's way. LA with defensive injuries on the blue line. Peter Budaj is a suspect goalie. I don't trust him in this price range. Let's make it official. Calgary Flames, burn, baby, burn. Disco Inferno, plus 140. The Calgary Flames, plus 140, rotation number 73. Your play of the day for Saturday NHL action. All right, that'll wrap it up. That's my look at the NHL early lines for Saturday, November 5th. I'm Ian Cameron for Sportsbook Review.
Research before you bet. Be sure to check out SBR Picks for the best game predictions, breakdowns, and much, much more.